you see, so I want to thank them. We have our Lieutenant Governor, we have General Haas, Kevin Guthrie, Jared Perdue, a lot of legislators. Appreciate everything they've done to work very hard. As of this morning, our state emergency response team has completed about 1,700 missions, and we're in the process of finishing another 2,000. Our search and rescue was finished very quickly, I think, as people know, and a lot of those assets are rescuing people in North Carolina in the mountains. We have 17 pods, points of distribution, open around the state. Food, water, other items you may need. If you can go to floridadisaster.org/updates. But, and this is a good sign, we've been collapsing a lot of those pods due to lack of demand. So we had pods in different areas, no one was really going, so you collapse. And so the general is going to continue to collapse if there's not enough traffic to justify how we're happy to do it. But at the same time, a lot of these areas that are recovering, the stores are open and people do have access to things. So that when we're closing them, it's actually a good sign. We've also deployed multi-resource agency centers to bring expedited services to areas that are hardest hit. Today we have Mark's opening at Horseshoe Beach, which has been open, Swanee, and Jasper in the Big Bend section of Florida. We were able to announce yesterday that and people were back in school, including in Taylor County. We understand that there's challenges that go with it, just like Hurricane Ian. Just because you happen to work in a school or a teacher doesn't mean that your home is somehow magically spared. And so there were a lot of folks who are working in our schools, working in different critical areas that also suffered a lot. So it's a tough situation. So we wanted to help with that. So we did, through the Florida Disaster Fund, to the counties that were the hardest hit in the Big Bend, $50,000 to each of their morning. We have 2.4 million accounts have been restored with power, and we got less than 9,000 that are without power. And we're still not even a week out from when the storm actually made landfall. Most of those 8,800 accounts are in the Big Bend area with the electrical co-ops, and it's just because some of those systems had to be completely rebuilt. So they're actually making really good progress on that. Those are things that would take 6 weeks in the past. That is not going to happen here. And I know Kevin's talking with them. We think that likely that'll be up and running pretty soon. So that's a remarkable. This is the fastest power restoration after a major hurricane than we have ever had. And we did fast in Ian. We did fast in Idalia, but this was even faster. So I want to thank everybody that was involved with doing that. Manatee County specific missions. So far, the state has delivered 587,000 bottles of drinking water, almost 100,000 shelf-stable meals, 11,000 tarps, 4 pallets of adult diapers, 4 pallets of baby wipes, 9 pallets of diapers for babies, 10,000 sandbags, 12 3,500-gallon tanker vac trucks, and we're also in process of finishing the following: a 24-hour security for one-stop business resource site, 2 floating docks to service 2 ferries shuttling residents from mainland to island. We opened the road again, which is great, but there's a lot of traffic. I mean, it took a lot longer to get out here, so that's an option for folks. Showers, laundry, and restroom trailers for the shelters, coordinating laundry, shower, and hygiene centers, along with towels, bedding, toiletries, and laundry detergent for Two Rivers Mobile Home Park, which I toured a couple days ago, as well as a coordinating damage assessment team, deployments for City of Anna Maria Island and for Manatee County. We also have 1 disaster recovery center for both Debbie and Helene assistance. One of our announcements today is we understand the housing is a challenge. If you had 4 feet of water in your house, even if it's not a total loss, you got to gut that drywall, muck and gut, and there's a rehab process that goes. So we've done things like do our trailer program where you can go through Hope, Florida if you want to get a travel trailer that Kevin and his team can deliver. We also have options through Visit Florida emergency accommodation on Expedia Priceline. Here in Manatee, you have some more options for hotels in the general area. Taylor County, some of the Big Bend, not as much. So that is still available if people want to use that. But in addition to all of those things, today I'm announcing that I am taking executive action to temporarily lift time restrictions on rentals. And we're directing municipalities and counties to do the same. We have regulations in this state, some of them local, some of them state, that require rentals to be greater than 30 days, either greater than or less than 30 days, depending on the locality. So you have this 30-day thing. Bottom line is you may need less than 30 days if you're rehabbing your home. Maybe you need a little bit more. If you are a victim of Hurricane Helene, those regulations are lifted, and you can rent what you need to rent regardless of any arbitrary rules. So we will provide, this will help provide immediate housing that will last 30 days or more for those who need it, but also cover those who need less than 30 days. And this is all counties that were declared under a state of emergency ahead of Hurricane Helene. Second executive order that we're doing is the continuity of our elections. So I'm announcing actions to ensure that people are going to be able to vote regardless of this storm. So in the areas that were most affected, Charlotte, Dixie, Hernando, Hillsborough, Lee, Levy, Madison, Manatee, Pasco, Pinellas, Sarasota, and Taylor, we are authorizing the supervisor of elections to make appropriate accommodations, just like was done after Hurricane Ian. And so we obviously are continuing with voter security efforts. None of those are being lifted, but if there's a polling place that's been destroyed, you have an ability to set up a different site, provide proper notice, and follow all the rest of state law. But this will ensure that residents that were impacted by this storm and displaced maybe still have the ability to vote in this November's election. Third executive order. We see, just going down here, you see debris, and they're doing a good job of cleaning up around here. I can tell you there was a lot of damage in Anna Maria, and so I see the progress, and there's a lot that needs to be done. But you have a lot of people that had feet of water in their homes. They're having to throw away furniture. They're having to gut the drywall. They're having to do all these things, and that's going to require them to be able to have the resources they need and the supplies they need to be able to rehab their homes, to be able to purchase additional furniture, or whatever it is that helps get them back on their feet. And this is something that, even in a normal circumstance, you can have challenges when you have this many properties that have been affected by a storm of this magnitude, of making sure you get all of that. And that's under normal circumstances. Now we have this situation where you have these ports are being shut down across the East Coast and the Gulf Coast of the United States. This has the potential of really disrupting the hurricane recovery and of hurting the people who were victims of the storm. And I don't think it's right to try to cripple the recovery that our storm victims are undergoing. We want to accelerate the recovery and do all we can to make that happen. What is going on in this work stoppage will negatively impact the distribution of cargo, and that will include perishable foods, medical equipment, home goods, electronics, machinery, apparel, vehicles, vehicle parts, lumber, steel, as well as other essential construction and hurricane supplies. At Port Everglades in southeast Florida, about 41% of businesses at 2 of the 5 terminals will be impacted. At Port Miami, strike will affect about 50% of the port's cargo capacity at 3 of its container terminals. And at Jacksport, about 1/3 of the commerce, particularly international container volumes and international vehicle volumes, will be impacted. This could lead, and indeed, if it goes on longer, will lead to significant supply chain disruptions. This will cause delays in the delivery of critical goods, and it will result in inventory shortages. Economic forecasts show that for every 36 hours this continues is equal to 1 week of supply chain disruptions. Do we have time for weeks of disruptions, given all that's happened in communities in Florida and throughout the Southeast? I don't think so. I think we need to get the stuff here as soon as possible so that people can get back on their feet. So as Floridians work hard to recover from Hurricane Helene, we have thousands of houses that are requiring substantial repairs or complete rebuilds. We know that these downstream harms to our residents are not acceptable. Our residents need reliable, steady supply of resources and building materials to keep their families fed and rebuild their homes and businesses. And so we have a responsibility in the state of Florida to do everything we can to avoid, mitigate, or minimize these disruptions that will have a negative impact on the people of Florida. So there are ships that have nothing to do with this, these negotiations. They may need a place to be able to come, and we just want to send the message, you can come to the state of Florida. You have Port Manatee can accept some of these ships. In fact, there's a ship that's got a bunch of steel that would be used for things that we need that may end up being rerouted. So Florida's open. We want to use our resources to be able to get all this stuff to the market so that people are able to use what they do. We have 16 different deep water seaports. We will work with you to get critical commodities to shore and promptly plugged into the supply chain. At my direction, the Florida National Guard and Florida State Guard will be deployed to critical ports affected to maintain order and, if possible, resume operations which would otherwise be shut down during this interruption. Florida Department of Transportation is coordinating calls with seaport rail and trucking partners to ensure that all are prepared and positioned appropriately to limit disruptions to the supply chain and other areas should this continue. I'm also directing Florida Department of Transportation to temporarily waive the collection of tolls and other fees for commercial vehicles using public highways in Florida and waiving the size and weight restrictions normally governing vehicle transportation for the duration of this emergency. This will help expedite the movement of goods that have been impacted from seaports to intermodal logistics centers, distribution centers, and delivery points, and very well may help offset additional costs incurred by operation during this period. Finally, I'm directing the Florida Highway Patrol to manage the flow of traffic from all Florida seaports and adjacent roads and highways as needed to further expedite the flow of goods that are currently being held up. This will include the provision of law enforcement escorts for commercial motor vehicles by FHP officers upon request. And I would say that this is something that would have significant impacts on the nation's economy anyways, but to have this happen in a way that could negatively impact people that are reeling from a Category 4 hurricane, that is just simply unacceptable. So it really is incumbent upon the Biden-Harris administration to do everything in their power to ensure that these goods are where we need to be, that people are not left hanging out in the cold waiting for these goods if they're sitting in the ocean somewhere and they're not being able to be used here in the state of Florida or in Georgia or North Carolina or where people are going to desperately need this. We need to accelerate. We have no time for delays. Biden-Harris has a responsibility to stand up for the storm victims, stand up for the people who've had their homes damaged or who've lost their homes, and make sure they have what they need to get back on their feet. For the next 2 weeks, Hope Florida will be 24/7. If you need resources, non-government resources, or travel trailers, you can call 1-833-GET-HOPE, 1-833-GET-HOPE. We have Hope buses in Dixie and Hamilton counties. We also have Hope navigators in Charlotte, Sarasota, Lee, Levy, and Manatee counties going into neighborhoods directly impacted by the storm to offer resources and support. We do have individual assistance available here in Manatee and the surrounding counties that were hit, and we appreciate that. We have an importance in a time of uncertainty like this. We have a responsibility to ensure that people don't take advantage of it. We are a law and order state. If people want to come and try to loot or try to take advantage of people when they're on their backs, you will face severe consequences. And it may be law enforcement consequences that will hold you accountable, but we also have a lot of citizens that are going to defend their property. So do not even think about messing around in the state of Florida. You will regret it. This weekend we were down in Bradenton Beach. We launched the Gulf Drive emergency repairs. We had 4 or 5 feet of sand covering the road. There were damages to the road. I mean, you look at the picture before, and then you look at what happened after the storm. It wasn't even recognizable in some areas. We wanted to make sure that this was not going to be something that was going to take weeks or months, as some people said, and probably would take weeks or months in many other states because of bureaucracy. We said you got to get going. Within 24 hours, Longboat Key portion was reopened, and on Monday night, really just a couple days after launching the emergency repairs, the entire 16-mile stretch of emergency repairs was completed. So I want to thank the Department of Transportation and Jared Perdue for getting that done very quickly and efficiently and making sure that people are able to use that important road. We have been talking about emergency bridge loans for businesses. We've set aside $15 million. We could do more if there's a demand. This is a zero-interest loan for up to $50,000. Very flexible repayment options. And so if you're somebody that needs that, use it. We've approved 99 loan applications for more than $4 million. And we have, like I said, we've got up to $15 million at a minimum that are ready to go. We've also made sure that you have places that have these restaurants that had either total destruction or significant damage. Some of them still want to be able to stay in business in the short term. Well, we've waived any limitations or any bureaucracy so that if you want to start a temporary restaurant, have it in a food truck, you should go do that, and government shouldn't be holding you back. So that is approved, and I know there's going to be restaurants that are going to be doing that, and we welcome that. We want you to be able to continue to earn revenue in this transition time. FloridaDisasterFund.org is open. It can accept taxpayer donations. I mentioned we did $50,000 increments to these Big Bend counties for the teachers. We'll probably do some stuff for maybe first responders as need be. So that's something that's been effective, and we appreciate people that have helped with that. Because our rescue operations happened very quickly, and because there was not a demand for that shortly after the storm, Florida redeployed resources to North Carolina under Operation Blue Ridge. They are working across multiple agencies to provide rescues, to provide food and water and essentials to people who are really in need. We also have our Florida Department of Transportation has brought crews to help repair roads, including 7,500 of emergency feet of bridges, and those will be utilized as appropriately, and we're happy to do that. We had just a couple days ago, we had people from the Florida Guard as well as Fish and Wildlife make contact with a community of 100 families that was stranded. They didn't have access to food or water. The team airlifted in rations, clean water, and fuel. Yesterday, a family of 3 was relying on rainwater and running low on food until the Florida State Guard and FWC showed up to provide badly needed food and water. National Guard also brought a generator to a home with a well, allowing them to provide water to the entire neighborhood until power is restored. And I'm pleased to announce that Florida successfully evacuated 3 families overnight from storm-hit parts of North Carolina to Florida, including the family's dogs. So this operation, assisting Floridians seeking rescue in North Carolina, is ongoing. If you have somebody there, or if you are there and you have access to comms and you need to be rescued, you can go to FloridaDisaster.org/Operation Blue Ridge. So we are, all systems go on everything we can do to be helpful. We do believe that this executive order on the rentals will provide more flexibility for people that need short-term solutions. We also think the elections are going to go fine. We're making the same accommodations we did with Ian. Everyone's going to be able to get to vote, and they'll be able to do so securely and safely. And then our resources are being mobilized to do whatever we can to avert negative impacts to the people of Florida as a result to shutting down some of these ports. We have hurricane victims that are going to need relief. We do not want to be in a situation where people are having to wait weeks and weeks for things that they could have had as a result of these ports being closed. So our executive order is doing what we can within the power and authority of the governor's office to be able to mitigate those effects. So we're happy to do that, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure that folks have a smooth recovery. Okay, we're going to hear from some of our folks now. So we'll start with Kevin Guthrie from the Division of Emergency Management.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Governor DeSantis, for your nonstop support as we continue to recover from this storm. Recovery is a very long process, but we have continued to work towards making it faster. As we begin our portion of the debris removal efforts for waterways, I need to caution debris haulers. We've had an incident happen in Sarasota County. If you are a debris hauler or a contractor who is in default of your contract, or who will not fulfill the terms of your contract, I will be directing the Department of Management Services Secretary to place your company on the suspended vendor list for the state of Florida. Your contract could be with FDEM, it could be with any state office, department, board, commission, division, bureau, council, or any other government entity, but you will be on that list and you will be suspended from doing business in the state of Florida. This is not the time to go chasing debris and debris money. It's time to do your job that we ask you to do here in the state of Florida. If you want to work with the state, then you need to fulfill your contract. Our Florida communities deserve the utmost service excellence as they work to clean up and rebuild resiliently for their residents, and debris removal is a massive part of that mission. For our impacted residents, if you are applying for FEMA assistance, you need to continue to provide the information that FEMA asks you for and make sure that you keep your account and application up to date. I'm going to take a moment just for a second and just explain a couple of things. We as individuals and human beings are just generically, we're prideful. We don't want to say that we're homeless. But if you're staying on a couch with a friend or a family, by definition, to qualify for programs, you are homeless. So please make sure that you're keeping that information up to date with FEMA. If your situation changes, you got a place to stay today, you're in a hotel, but your funds are going to run out, you're going to have to go stay with somebody on their couch. Update your status. That may open up other programs to help you out. Disaster recovery centers are continuing to open up every single day in the impacted counties for Hurricane Helene and also Hurricane Debbie. These centers can provide one-on-one assistance for the application process, and you can find one in your area through our live map at floridadisaster.org/updates. If you have an application for FEMA assistance from Hurricane Debbie, and you also need assistance for damages caused by Hurricane Helene, you need to start a new application. You need to start a new application specific for Helene. When you're in your Helene application, don't reference Debbie. When you're in Debbie application, don't reference Helene. That will kick one or the other out. So please make sure you're talking about the specific storm that you've been impacted by. You can find all information that you need to for Activate Hope on the Hope Florida website at hopeflorida.com, or you can call 1-833-GET-HOPE. The sooner we know what you need, the sooner that we can connect you for the best resources to support you. Hurricane season goes until November the 30th. We still have 2 months left. For some of you, your situation has changed. Now is the time to go ahead and evaluate your plan, see what you need in your kit based on your circumstances today. If you need food and water, we have plenty of points of distribution that you can go and get that free food and water to put back into your kit. We're here to help you, and we want to help you navigate this difficult time. We also need you to reassess your disaster plan and determine if any of your needs have changed. FloridaDisaster.org has those planning and recovery resources. And again, I just want to thank the governor for the nonstop work that he's been putting in, and also the nonstop work that the men and women of the state of Florida and their agencies have been putting in. We were on the drive-in this morning, and I saw 2 Hope navigators walking the neighborhood going door to door. Again, it takes all of us to respond to this. I appreciate all of the state emergency response team's assistance, and especially yours, Governor. Thank you for your leadership.
Okay, Jared.
Governor, thank you for your leadership on this issue and fighting to protect our supply chain. As you've heard from the governor, many East Coast and Gulf Coast seaports have slowed way down or shut down due to the ongoing negotiations between USMX and the ILA. As the Transportation Secretary of Florida, FDOT fully understands that the transportation network is the nexus for Florida's supply chain. It is quite disappointing we've reached this point given the well-known ripple effects a disruption in our supply chain has on the quality of life for our country and, most importantly, our Florida residents. Most of the things we buy every day come through one of our 16 deepwater seaports. These 16 ports produce 900,000 direct and indirect jobs, annually provide more than $117 billion in economic value, and handle over 114 million tons of cargo. The East and Gulf Coast ports combined handle about 25 to 30% of U.S. imports of steel, cement, and other construction materials that are needed for Floridians to quickly rebuild after Hurricane Helene. This is especially critical during this time of hurricane recovery for a large portion of our state and the whole eastern seaboard. I've been in the field with our FDOT crews who were deployed to the field within hours of Helene's landfall. After personally spending time with Floridians this past week who are hurting and will have to rebuild, it is a genuine concern that this kind of shutdown will hinder them from being able to do that. Our FDOT crews have worked around the clock to clear Gulf Boulevard in Pinellas County, to cut and toss I-10 in a matter of hours after the storm, and also cut and toss over 12,000 miles of roadways statewide. We inspected over 1,900 bridges across the state and removed debris and repaired all of our critical infrastructure within days of the storm making landfall. Just south of here, as you heard from the governor, we worked to clear Gulf Drive, which as of 8 a.m. this morning, we are also proud to announce that the local side streets in Bradenton Beach are now clear. People want to get back to normal, and under the governor's leadership, FDOT is committed to helping them do just that. If this issue is prolonged, Florida will directly feel the impacts with a lag in receiving construction materials, consumer goods, and agriculture products, amongst many other things. FDOT is proud to answer the governor's call in this executive order. When we do reopen, we need to be ready for the influx of cargo at our seaports and getting that cargo to its ultimate destination as quickly as possible. Our team has already begun coordinating with our seaport and trucking partners, Florida Commerce, Florida Highway Patrol, and our national and state guard leadership to ensure they have access to all resources and information they may need to help mitigate the impacts of this issue. Under the governor's executive order, the state stands ready to waive tolls, size and weight restrictions, and hours of service for truckers, and to coordinate FHP and National Guard and State Guard escorts and convoys for trucks and manage the flow of traffic leaving out of seaports. FDOT is ready to serve in any capacity we can, including supporting those seaports not impacted by the strike who are able to receive and prioritize vessels with a Florida port of call who may be carrying medical equipment and hurricane recovery supplies. Florida seaports are still open for business, and we welcome any vessels to redirect here. Thank you to our port partners who have been steadfast in seeking solutions to ensure Florida experiences as minimal impacts as possible. I've witnessed firsthand the destruction this storm has caused across Florida and the Southeast. It's unacceptable that this continues as Floridians, and I stand with Governor DeSantis in trying to recover from a devastating hurricane and keeping our supply chain moving. Thank you, Governor, for supporting our communities in their greatest time of need and standing with us as we work to protect Floridians. Thank you.
Okay. What did they say? Purdue? Jared Purdue. Yeah,
Purdue.
Department of Transportation.
Governor, thank you for your leadership, for your support, and for your decisive actions enabling a broad and capable hurricane response. As the governor and the director the secretary have announced, the Florida National Guard is currently preparing for the deployment of guardsmen to support port operations under the direction of the Department of Transportation to mitigate the impacts of the current labor strike across Florida. Our guardsmen are prepared to perform several key tasks, including heavy equipment operations, warehouse operations, security operations, transportation, and command and control. These critical functions are essential to alleviating potential disruptions caused by the ongoing strike. and to ensure the necessary services and supply continue to flow across Florida in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. The Florida National Guard continues to support hurricane operation response both here at home and in Carolinas, and stand ready to support Secretary Perdue and the Department of Transportation with the deployment of personnel and essential capabilities across Florida's major ports. Governor, your Florida National Guard stands ready to support.
Okay. So we will continue to really press on this. We know it's important, and we know we've got to do everything we can to make sure people are able to get back up on their feet. And it's going to take time, but we don't want it to take more time than is necessary because of some of these interruptions. So thanks for everyone involved with that.
Governor, we've seen several times you've worked with President Biden in the past. You've met him at several disasters. Is there a particular reason you're not with the president today in Tallahassee?
No, we had this plan.
Governor, last night the city of Palm Beach enacted a 45-day moratorium on vacation rental reservations. Will your executive order supersede that?
It will supersede it for people who were affected by the storm. So if someone's got a rental in Holmes Beach and you've lost your home and you need a 15-day, you have a right to enter into that agreement and do a 15-day rental or a 30-day or whatever you need. So, but it is limited to the people that were displaced from the home. Obviously, these local municipalities have certain authority to do how they want to do it, generally speaking, for the general public. But for our storm victims, we want to give them as many options as possible.
Sir, we're seeing a lot of tourists that had vacations planned to places like Ana Maria and I'm sure other places along the coast, wondering if they should come. What's your messaging for people just wondering if they should be visiting these disaster area recovery zones?
No, look, I mean, I think, this is something where I know the mayor's here and others, and I know they're approaching it very thoughtfully, but my view would be that there's still a lot of good stuff. We want the economy to get back going. We want people to be able to come, and there may be some areas where it may be a little bit more challenging, but the goal needs to be to get people back up and to get the tourism flowing again. Obviously there was a lot of storm surge. There's been a lot of damage. They're cleaning it up. But you look, this is a beautiful part of the state of Florida, and so we want our restaurants back. We want these places to go. But there are local issues with that, and I think they can work that out however they see fit. But state of Florida is open for business. There's still a lot that you'd want to be able to do. It's still, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. So we anticipate to continue to see people want to come down here.
We know that there's a tragic death toll. More than 200 people across the Southeast. Sheriff Gualtieri in Pinellas County has been very transparent. There's been 12 deaths in his county. Can you talk specifically about the death toll, county by county, or more how it's affecting Floridians at this time?
Well, one, when you have any deaths, it's a tragic situation. And the thing about these storms is, there are times where a death may occur, and I'm not saying it happened in this storm, where somebody goes out intentionally into the hurricane. We've had people try to surf and stuff. But a lot of these deaths are just freak things where a tree falls on someone's house. We had somebody evacuating and a sign fell on the interstate. So this stuff is very, very difficult, and our hearts go out to everybody that's been affected by that. We do have county by county. I don't have it off the top of my head, but if you follow up with our guys, they're happy to do it. Pinellas is where at least the plurality of storm deaths occurred. And then I would also say some of the other ones, whether something is a storm-related death or not, sometimes people have some dispute. So, for example, some of the deaths that have been reported go as far as Jacksonville and Miami, which obviously were not close to the main action here, but may have had some stuff. So, but yes, we have that and do. I will say, just with our guys being in Western North Carolina, that is where I think most of the deaths have occurred. And I think the tragic thing about that is I don't know that they know when it's going to end in terms of finding people, but also you have people isolated. Our Florida Guard and they dropped supplies. There was 100 families in a community. They were totally cut off. eventually, if you don't get the relief, you're not going to be able to survive that indefinitely if you don't have access to food and water. So I think this is still, the tragedy is still unfolding, particularly in Western North Carolina. That was one of the reasons why we had these resources idle. There were no demands for rescue in Florida after the initial 24, 48 hours. So we felt an obligation to help, and we felt an obligation to make a difference. And we have made a difference, and will continue to make a difference.
Governor, are you able to say about how many deaths Florida has had?
Kevin knows exactly. What is the...
I believe it's 15 as of this point.
Okay, so there's 15 confirmed. I think it's probably higher. So I think, like I said, because you got Miami, you got others, so it's not just the Gulf Coast that's being included. And I think the reason is because you have a hurricane going on, maybe there's a traffic accident, the weather's bad, even though maybe hundreds of miles away, they tend to count that. So, but we will provide that. I know they have it, and so I would think it's probably at a minimum 15. I think it's likely more than 15. Okay. I think Pinellas is definitely the plurality. I don't know if it's the majority. It might be, but it's definitely the plurality.
With respect to the Holmes Beach ordinance from last night, with the just a little nuance, would it supersede the rule for hotels in addition to the home, instead of the homes?
In terms of what for hotels?
For allowing the hotels to rent, or would the hotels be subject to the same restrictions of only?
You'd have to ask them. I'm not sure. I have not seen that ordinance. You guys obviously have your local officials that you work through on all those things, but we want people to have access to hotels. I mean, that's why we have the Expedia and the Priceline. You will be. Have they done the TSA yet? Has that been approved?
It has not been approved. The request went out 2 days ago.
Okay. So we anticipate for people, at least in the IA counties, would be approved for it. Yeah, so if you're, Manatee has been approved. If you've been approved for individual assistance, we've requested support for something called TSA. No, not the bureaucracy that you see at the airports. This is transitional housing money, and you would be able to take that and use it at a hotel. And we encourage people, if they want to do it. If you're a rehab in a house here, that is actually a live possibility to maybe be in a hotel for a short time period. It's a little harder if you're in Horseshoe Beach, very rural part of the state, or if you're in Deacle Beach in Taylor County. They may not be able to use. But I do think the greater Tampa Bay area, the folks that need transitional housing, that TSA very well may be something that'll be useful. And the thing is, it's helpful for the hotels too, because to the extent they have had interruption and anybody coming down, they're able to basically rent the rooms out and continue to get revenue on their end as well. So that we anticipate that will be approved, and then anybody here who's been displaced in Manatee, Pinellas, Hillsborough, Pasco, all those counties, you will be eligible for that. And Kevin, how long does that go for?
It could be extended. We usually do it 30 to 60 days at a time, and we extend 30 days.
Okay, so at a minimum, you'll get 30 days with the TSA for the hotels.
Governor, can you talk about not just the consumer aspect of the strike that's going on at the ports, but talk about our local businesses, because they rely on these items that are off our shores right now?
100%. We've obviously included this port executive order under the umbrella of our Hurricane Helene emergency executive order because we think the impacts are significant for storm victims. But that is only one aspect of this. You are going to have businesses that are going to not have what they need to be able to continue their operations in an optimal way. And so it will absolutely hurt small businesses. And the thing about it is, there's certain things that if you're in business, like I know a lot of people in business, if they could get this made in America, they would, even if they had to pay a little more. But some of the stuff just isn't made here. And that's a whole other discussion that we can have about how you can go about fixing that. But the reality is they rely on this. And if they don't have it, they're not going to be able to discharge what they need to be successful, and especially in a time where their businesses have already been interrupted by the storm. So it will have an impact. Every 36 hours of shutdown at the ports is like a week of delay of different materials, and what happens is It initially is something you can probably get through in the first however many day or two, because there are inventories, may have surplus and whatnot. Sometimes people plan for some of this stuff, and so you do that. But as you go further and further, the effects become exponential, and they really build and they really snowball. So why would we want to be doing this right now? I just think the harm to people is going to be really significant. And it's my responsibility to do whatever we can to alleviate that as best we can. And look, our tools are imperfect, but we're going to sure deploy them as necessary. Okay, thanks everybody. Appreciate it. Hang in there. We are going to come back stronger than ever here. I know, people have loved coming to Anna Maria for so long. There's so many families that have been doing this over generations, and there's a reason, because it's a really special piece of property. It's already looking a lot better than it did right after that storm. I'll tell you, people have been doing a lot of work. Good on you for that. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but it'll get done. It'll happen, and we want to get everybody on their feet as quick as possible. Thanks.